welcome to another FACEHAMMER
Play
hashtag
there,
new AOS video. And
otherwise known as Byron's ongoing education at the Hunt of Russ.
yeah, and obviously a lot of the stuff's been covered in our pre-shows to the launch, but some of the stuff I couldn't say when I covered it because other stuff hadn't been revealed, so this might feel like old ground, but in this show we are going to be talking about heroic actions and monstrous rampages.
I mean, this is worth covering in depth, right? Because this is, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're covering we've picked because we think it's important, but it is hugely important, this stuff.
Yeah, so this is obviously one of the core new mechanics of the game. So we're going to start by talking about heroic actions, what they are and all that kind of stuff. So basically,
What is one then?
well, they're a heroic action. No, a hero can do a. So I love this word. And a unit with the hero keyword on its war scroll is a hero. Just to make it clear. So at the start of the hero phase, you can carry out one heroic action with one friendly hero. So you only get to do one a phase, but that's both players' phases. The effect of the heroic action is treated the same way as an ability, and there's just some rules about how abilities work. So not that important for right now. But basically, you get to do them in both players. So you've got one which is heroic leadership. So pick a hero, roll a dice, add 2 if your general's been slain. The reason that's there is that if you don't, you get a command point for your general being alive. So if you've lost your general, it means you have to use your heroic action and roll a 2+ to get one.
Nice kind of sacrificey, bouncy way to even out, isn't it? Because some people might want to build a list where they have a very weak general just because, you know, that person needs to be their general to make something battle line. So at least you're not foregoing that if you play someone with a good shooting face or something.
Yeah, but it's still not as good because obviously, like, it's not automatic, and your general is, you can do this in addition if you've got a general, but it's only on a 4+ then. So it's like,
yeah,
it's but you get a command point, but it says you can only be spent that turn. So maybe it's in the turn you do it, not in the battle round, to allow that hero to issue a command. So you can't do it. You can't issue another command ability from another unit. So it's only that hero. It's quite useful if you've got a command ability on the war scroll that you want to use regularly. Like if you're playing Nagash, for example. So you like, we always want to pop his command ability, so you might as well, you know. Then you've got heroic willpower. So pick a friendly hero that's not a wizard. If it's the enemy hero phase, that wizard can attempt to unbind a spell. If it's your hero phase, the hero can attempt to dispel and end the spell as if they were a wizard. So that gives you a little bit of magical defense.
A lot of the time, people are at pluses, though, aren't they? And the people who would be doing this are probably not at pluses to dispel.
No, but it's quite good for getting rid of endless spells, particularly if you're playing like Sons of Behemat, because you just don't have wizards.
Yeah, fair.
Like you have to play like
a lot better than 0.
Yeah, you have to play like Kraken Eater to get an artifact to get one. I think it's even an artifact or a trait that gives you an unbind or dispel. So,
yeah, it's an artifact for wizarding a hat, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah. So basically, like, it sounds not very good, but some armies it's a godsend. This next one's probably the best one. That like, it's because of the way it interacts with command abilities. So you got the finest hour. So pick a friendly hero, add 1 to wound rolls, and add 1 to save rolls until the end of that turn. You can't do it more than once with that hero in the same battle. So it's a once per battle heroic action. But there's no roll, it's just automatic. It's quite nice because you get +1 to wound and +1 armor save. And because it's not a command ability, if you wanted to then use all-out defense in the combat phase, you get +2 to save, or you could go for all-out attack for +1 hit, +1 to wound, and +1 save. If you're really cheeky and you've got an ability that gives you those bonuses other ways, you can then get to multiple pluses to save. Death, particularly Soulblight, have quite a few ways to do that. And the reason you might want to do that is because you're always taking the net modifier after you've applied both sides. So if an army works around negatives to hit, or negatives to wound, and you can give yourself +2 to wound or +2 to hit or +1 to hit, it counteracts their negatives. And with armor save, it's particularly strong because every army has rend, right? So
yeah.
And what's nice about this, it persists for that turn, so it goes through multiple phases, whereas like all out defense is just shooting or combat phase. So
yeah. And I mean, people shouldn't get fixed on the wound or saves bit. If you just get one side of that and that's useful to you, that's still an amazing buff, right? Like your 3+ to save big wizard who's not going to hit anything, still putting him on a 2+ is okay.
Yeah. And also, like, you know, if you've got like a hero and you're like, well, actually, I want to make sure that I wound my attacks. It's like, you know, particularly if they're on a particularly nasty mount, then it's probably good because it doesn't say, because it's not like an artifact or a trait which doesn't affect mounts. So like this does affect the mount. So
yeah, I haven't put those two together. That is quite a big difference. And very often, if it's something big and scary, it's wounding on 3s anyway.
Yeah.
So 2s is just excellent.
Yeah. And then heroic recovery. This one again is very good, particularly after you've just done your finest hour and gone into their hero phase. Because you can do it in their go. You pick a hero, roll 2d6 and roll, if it's less than their bravery, so it's a bit like a leadership test of old, you can heal D3 wounds. If the roll's equal to the bravery, you can heal 1 wound. So high bravery heroes, so bravery 10 and stuff like that is pretty strong.
Quite nice. A lot of the high bravery ones are pretty flimsy. You know, elven heroes often have decent bravery, stuff like that. So you've never been able to get that type of thing without using a healing spell or without using a healing endless spell, really, in the past for a lot of the people now. So
yeah, I mean, it's just a great way to get wounds back.
Hello, Sigvald.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what his bravery is. I think it's high, but
yeah, probably 10, isn't it? Arrogant.
It's probably like 5. Sinesh.
Don't. Right. Let's continue. No more bagging on Sigvald. I am still thinking that I can play Sinesh without crying, so it's going to be okay.
Oh, we'll see.
Stop it.
I just tricked everyone. Ha ha ha! And I'm going to go play Soulblight. No, that's not what I did. Sorry. Don't comment. I am joking. So, monsters rampage. So, the end of a charge phase, each player can do a rampage. If it's your turn, you do yours first. The same player cannot carry out the same rampage more than once per phase. So it's an ability again, but you have raw. This one is pretty good. So basically it means that on a 3+, that unit cannot issue or receive commands in the following combat phase. So some people have said that it affects, they sort of, battle shock, but obviously that's the different phase. So it's not going to stop you doing Inspiring Presence, but it does stop you doing all-out defense or all-out attack. And some armies have other abilities that affect in the combat phase, like extra attacks and things like that.
That's a huge deal.
It's very important. Like, it is on a 3+, so it's not automatic, although everyone will kind of assume that, oh, you just raw and they can't do it. It's, yeah. 60% of the time it works every time, right? So it's like Sex Panther of the stomps. And actually, like, the normal stomp, so like pick an enemy unit within 3 on a 2+, take D3 mortals, doesn't sound very sexy, but it's still an extra like D3 wounds.
Yeah, and it's far more reliable. 1 in 3 is, you know, if you really need that thing to work, 1 in 3 is like just not quite enough. And then on a 2+, it's great. Yeah,
it's almost like twice as unlikely to fail as the other one.
Exactly. And right. quite a lot of things that are monstery anyway, you're going to have done some impact hit type mechanics or have something that happens at the end of combat or something like that. So stacking multiple D3s up is always going to be a bonus, or you know, D6s or like epic amounts if you Kragnos or whatever.
Kragnos just does so many mortal wounds, you just don't care. It's like, I just deleted you with my 36 mortal wounds. Well, I could do D3 more. Whoa.
If something has had the, you know, the goal to
you might leave it on a couple wounds. God, just stop.
Yeah.
Titanic Duel. Pick an enemy monster within 3 of this monster, which because you're a monster doing it, obviously. Add 1 to hit rolls. that target that monster. So if you're a heroic monster and you use your finest hour and this, you're getting +1 hit, +1 wound, +1 save with no command abilities or no command points being spent.
On all of the profiles for both the monster and the rider?
Yeah.
Can I just play a Terrorghost army, please?
Yeah. Avangori just got sexy. Yeah, so pretty good. I mean, you only do it once, and it's got to go against a monster. So you can't do, like, if you had like 3 zombie dragons, you can't all do Titanic Jaws. But it's pretty cool. Then you've got Smash to Rubble. And this one's quite interesting. So pick a terrain feature or defensible terrain. A defensible terrain are garrisonable terrain features. So there's a lot more of that in the rules now, and it's been tidied up a bit. There's some changes around that. And then basically on a 3+, the terrain is demolished. You don't remove it off the table. It just loses the ability to be garrisonable, and the units gets kicked out, basically, and they take damage. And on, I think you roll a dice on a 1, they die, or something like that. And the scenery rules on the war scroll cannot be used for the rest of the battle if it was a faction terrain piece. So anything that's faction terrain, like Gloom Tide shipwrecks and stuff like that, you can smash it to rubble. Bone Tide Nexus. It's quite an important distinction because there's some rules that are on the war scroll and some that aren't. So, for example, if you've got a Feculent Narmor, it generates contagion, but those rules are not on the Narmor scroll. They're in the allegiance abilities for contagion points. So that wouldn't stop. But the rule on which allows you to run and charge would stop.
Okay, cool.
So it's important to know, and it's the same with like Wildwoods with Sylvaneth. It doesn't stop you using that Wildwood, and any rule that says, are you within X of a Wildwood? Yes, you are. The Wildwood doesn't have any rules anymore, but it still is a Wildwood, right?
Got you. Okay, so that makes sense. I also like how happy that dragon looks. It looks like he's having a wonderful time destroying the castle.
He does. I don't know how he's doing it, but he's definitely destroying that.
No, it looks like a child's drawn it attacking the sandwich. That's great.
He might have mistaken that tower for a mate or something. That's how he's smashing it to rubble. Which I thought is what you were saying, but maybe not.
I don't want to see its baby if that's the case.
The picture of the Bastillodon with the snake launchers doesn't help that image either, because it's
potent.
It's like we'll put a picture on in the book in case you've forgotten what it looks like, because it doesn't have a solar engine on the back. So so that's Monsters Rampage. So it's really cool. But what's good about it, you don't have to charge anything to use that Smash to Rebel. You could just do it in your go, run up the table. In the charge phase, you're like, well, I'm stood next to a piece of terrain, so I'll do it.
That'll do. Yeah. Okay. That's worth clocking. I just like there's stuff happening in each phase. The ability for, your phases, your opponent's phases. There's going to be stuff to do. Not just like sit here. Oh, my opponent got a double. Oh, I took a load of models off. That's just nice.
And again, what's important is you don't have to have charged to use these. So if you charge an enemy monster, they get to do it to you. So you could have the situation where you've got like a hero with a couple wounds left, charges a monster, and he just stomps on you before you attack.
I have a question. What happens with the priorities in that situation? So it's my turn. I've charged someone. We're both, for sake of argument, on 2 wounds. What's the order? The person
whose turn it is does this first.
Okay, cool.
So, but if you're not a monster, you can't Monsters Rampage, right? So you could just be like a Liege Cavalos with 2 wounds left. Go, right, it's my go. There's that giant. I'm going to charge you. Yeah. And the giant just goes, cool, end of the charge phase, stomp. Oh, he's dead. Cool.
Yeah. Other way to think about this is as well, with your shooting phase, your magic phase, charge phase comes after quite a lot of other stuff, everything that isn't combat. So you can stack up. It's nice now. It's unlocked. A lot of the armies that struggle a bit with getting shooting in there or ways to remove screens, it's just something else which might help. And how often have you been held up by 2 skinks or something like that, right? This is a good way to clear a path.
Yeah, and Raw is really good on support monsters. So I did a Slaves to Darkness arc when I talked about things like the Mindbender Spheranx, or whatever it's called, and the Firmoid Crusher, because they don't actually count as behemoths, but they've got the monster keyword. And the same with the Sorcerer Lord on Manticore, right? it's a fast monster that you can roar a unit that your Chaos Knights are fighting. So although although the Shaman isn't going to be like doing a lot, you just want the unit not to be able to go all out defense against your big combat unit. So if you've got like a Vengorian Lord and a unit of Blood Knights, put them into the same unit, roar the unit with the Vengorian Lord. They can't then have all out defense put on them. Then your Blood Knight smash them in the face.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of synergy with comboing a small support monster hero, particularly a flying one, with a unit of something where you don't want them to be able to use command abilities in that phase.
Yeah. Important to remember though, if
you're on a 1 or 2.
It has to be you charging to be able to get the chance to stop them from using their abilities.
No, you just got to be within 3 with your monster.
But I mean, they could, if it's their turn, they could use the ability before you get the opportunity.
If they're a monster,
use the ability. Yeah,
but that still wouldn't stop you roaring them.
Yeah.
So like, because roar, if they're a monster and they charge you, they charge you, and they roar you, that doesn't stop you roaring them.
Okay. Yeah.
Because you're still able to do a monstrous rampage because it's not a command ability. And it's not in the next phase yet. But what's quite important is that if they charge you, you can also do this defensively. So you can have a monstrous hero in amongst an infantry unit. So like if you've got a Vengorian, it's a great one because they're within 3, they worsen their rend. So you could have a unit of Graveguard and having just stood behind them, they charge you. I mean, they could get around it by charging, not be within 3 of the monster, then piling in. So you just need to be aware that if you make a charge, if you don't have to be within 3 of a monster, don't be.
Yeah.
So like, it sounds stupid, but it is.
Oh, it's easily done.
It's easily done. And like, you can do things to get around it because again, it's a 3-inch range. You can charge something, and then because the way the pile-in works, pile in towards melee range of that monster. Because you could be 3.1 inches away, you get a 3-inch pile in, slide around the side of the base of the thing you've charged, then hit the monster, and because you were outside of 3, they couldn't use roar or stomp or titanic duel on you.
Yeah, big deal, isn't it?
So, and again, even units that do that 6-inch pile in shenanigans, again, you're outside of 3. So when you're charging, you've got to be really careful not to go within 3 of a big monster if you don't have to. If you're worried about those abilities.
Cool. Tasty. I like it.
It does make monsters feel a little bit scarier, so it's quite cool.
Wonderful. I've got not many infantry in my house and far too many monsters, so
yeah,
good.
It's definitely the addition for people who run lots of big things. Cool. Well, that's probably about everything to talk about those 2 things, but hopefully that was useful.
Yeah, it should be. Everyone go out and buy all the monsters.
Yeah. Let's click on the link below to help us. So, yeah, thanks very much for watching, and we'll check you again tomorrow for another video.
Yeah, absolutely. Catch you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.